Mr. Guy, cross-examination.
Mr. Dunn, you love Rhonda Rauer.
Yes, sir, I do.
Right? You love her a lot, right?
Yes, sir, I do.
And you loved her back then, correct?
I love her today.
November 23rd, 2012, you were in love with her.
Yes, sir.
You cared about her.
Yes, sir.
Right. And when she got into that car, she asked you what happened, right?
Yes, sir.
And you told this jury, you explained it to her, right?
Yes, I did.
And she, as you said, was a wreck, right?
Yes, she was.
Because she knew that you had just fired into a car with human beings inside.
She doesn't understand self-defense, but you are right. She was very upset over what I had done.
Right, right. And so you guys were together for 3 miles and she was hysterical?
Crying, yes.
Right. You did not tell her during that 3 miles anyone pointed any weapon at you, did you?
I think I did. I think I was very clear that they threatened my life. I was very clear that they came out of their car advancing upon me. And whether she comprehended what I was saying, I couldn't say.
My question was, did you tell her they had a weapon of any kind?
Yes, I did.
You did. What did you tell her? To tell the jury the term that you used to describe the weapon.
I don't know what I said, but I told her that they had a weapon, they threatened my life, and he advanced upon me.
Well, how'd you describe the weapon? Did you say they had a sword? Did you say they had a machete?
Gun.
A gun. You used the word gun with Rhonda Rauer.
Yes, I did.
When?
Multiple times.
One at a time, Mr. Guy.
Sir, are you telling this jury that on the way back to the hotel, you told Rhonda Rauer that the boys in the car had a gun?
If I told her on the way to the hotel, I told her several times at the hotel, I told her several times on the way home that this was self-defense.
That wasn't my question.
Well, the whole conversation revolved around gun, threat. They came out of the car at me, so it wasn't just they had a gun. Because when he just had a gun, I didn't shoot him. It wasn't until he made specific threats and got out of his car and came after me.
Okay,
so all of that was part of the conversation.
All right. I'm going to take this in little tiny increments now, so follow me. From the time you left the gate station to the time you got back to the Sheraton, how many times did you use the word gun to describe what the boys, let me finish, what the boys in the car had?
I couldn't tell you.
Was it more than one?
At least one.
Okay. And when you got back to the hotel, she was still a wreck, right?
That's correct.
She was upset?
That's correct.
But she didn't even go into the room, right? She was sitting out by the elevator.
She went into the room to change, and then we went out to the club room.
Right, and she, as she testified, was waiting for the police to come, right?
Well, we were waiting for the red SUV to come. Now, that's what I was waiting for. I couldn't tell you what she was waiting for, but that was the sentiment that I understood, that she was waiting for retaliation.
Okay, and we'll get back to that, the SUV. How many times during that time did you tell her they had a gun?
I don't think we discussed it because we were in a public area.
Okay, well, you did go back to your room, correct?
I'm talking about in the club room.
I understand. Now I'm talking about you go back to your room, right?
Right.
She was still a wreck.
Yes, she was.
Okay, tell the members of the jury how many times you said to her they had a gun.
At least once.
And when she woke up, she heard that somebody had been killed, right?
Yes, she did.
Okay, tell the jury how many times you told her at that point, don't worry, honey, they had a gun.
I didn't say that.
The truth is, Mr. Dunn, you never told Rhonda Rauer ever that they had a gun.
That's incorrect.
Hang on.
Counsel testifying as the truth is this, was asking the question.
Cross-examination, Mr. Strello, overruled.
Mr. Dunn, the truth is, you never told the love of your life that those boys had a gun.
You weren't there.
Did you? You did tell her then?
I said you were not there.
I get that. I know that. The truth is, you didn't tell her about a gun, did you?
I mentioned the
Hang
gun.
on, Mr. Strello, if you want to object, please stand up, and make the objection loudly so everybody will stop.
Judge, I don't think it's been answered.
I forgot the question. Ask the question again and see if you're going to make the same
The
objection.
truth is, you never told Rhonda Rower they had a gun.
That is incorrect.
Same objection.
All right, well, he's answered.
You never told them they had any kind of weapon, did you?
That's incorrect.
And the truth is that Jordan Davis was inside the red SUV when you shot and killed him.
That is incorrect.
Do you remember, the letter? I'm going to call it the letter that you dictated to your brother Matt
What was the title?
the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday 2012. Looks like this.
Yes, I do.
You remember that?
I do.
Okay, tell the jury how that came to be.
I wrote that as like therapy for myself to get it out, as well as to inform my family and friends of what really happened, to counter the lies and misinformation that the state attorney and the media were putting out about what happened.
So this is it. This is the historical document of what happened on the evening of November 23rd, 2012, correct?
Sure, with reason. I mean, I didn't write the nasty words for my grandmother to read.
Anything other than that you didn't write?
You'd have to be specific.
Okay, well, let me be more specific. Do you remember writing, quote, on page 2? Do you need a copy?
I don't have a copy of it with me.
Would you like one? Would you like one?
Sure.
No,
Page 2.
and I'm only going to object to reading something that's not in evidence and improper impeachment, no predicate.
Sustained.
Sir, is that the letter?
It appears to be.
All right. Well, I want to be right. Is that it? And Judge, for the record, I'll mark it, I think we're on 8S.
S as in Sam,
Yes, sir.
okay? For identification purposes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, this is the letter.
Okay. Is that a fair and accurate copy of it?
It appears to be.
All right. Judge, I've moved this into evidence as states, I think we're on 201.
Your Honor, we would object. It's not sworn, it's improper, it's hearsay. We understand it's a letter written by Mr. Dunn, but at this point, there's been no proper predicate laid in terms of marking in the evidence in the defense's case in chief.
Judge, he testified this is an accurate account of what happened. I'm going to tend to use it to impeach him.
Your objection is overruled to be received as states 201.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Again, the top of page 2. I'm going to ask you to look for this language. Quote, when I turned back to my left, the guy who was advancing on me had apparently seen me go for my own weapon and dove
Your Honor, I'm
back
only gonna
inside.
object. It's improper impeachment. He hasn't been asked if that's what he said. He hasn't been asked.
Sustained.
Judge, let me clarify. You just told this jury that when you fired Jordan Davis, you now know who he is, right? Mm-hmm. Was outside the car. Is that what you said?
His door was open. I don't know where his body was, but I wrote here he apparently did because of what I learned later.
Hold on, not 5 minutes ago. Didn't you just tell this jury he was outside the car?
He sure was. I mean, his door was open.
Okay, but you wrote in your...
You know, if his feet were outside and his body was inside, that's a little splitting hairs.
Mr. Dunn, did you write he had apparently seen me go for my own weapon and dove back inside
Yeah,
the SUV.
absolutely, that's what I wrote. That's not what I knew at the time, but this is what I surmised.
You referenced those were your words though, right? That's in that document.
Correct.
Okay. And you referenced this interview with the sheriff's office. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay. They read you your constitutional rights, right?
Yep.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. And you agreed to speak with them?
Yes, I had nothing to hide.
Right. And it's on videotape, correct?
Yes, it would have been nice if you had shown that.
We're not done. It's on videotape and audio tape, correct?
Yes.
And isn't it true, sir, that you said, and if you need a transcript, I'm happy to give it to you if it'll refresh your memory. He's coming out. I think he saw what I was doing and was running back in. You remember saying that?
Sure, and what you have to understand is I saw him exit the car. I saw his head above the door frame, and then after that I didn't see him anymore. He didn't just go poof and disappear. So he went somewhere, but
Right.
the door was open, and then the door was closed.
So you're telling this jury that after you shot Jordan Davis through his aorta, that he reached over and pulled the door back shut? Is that what you're telling us?
I don't know how that happened. Maybe it happened because the car was backing up.
Well,
But if you look at the bullet hole in the door, it's plainly open.
do you have that now?
Do the ME's picture that showed all the dowels, and you'll see it.
That's coming. You see it states 32?
Sure.
You see that? You see that piece of plastic in the seat?
I see 4 pieces of plastic in the seat.
Right. You think the door was open?
I think
when
you
those
should look
flew
at the
into
bullet
car?
impacts versus debris inside.
Do you think that piece of plastic, let me finish, do you think that piece of plastic just kind of made a right turn and flew into the car?
That's not accurate.
The picture's not accurate?
Your characterization of a right turn blown into the car is inaccurate.
How about that picture?
Right, and if you open the door a little bit, that angle would match the same angle as the dowels in the front door.
So Jordan Davis was standing outside his car going like this?
No, I think, like I said, he was diving in
He was diving in before you fired.
as I was firing.
I thought you just told us he was outside the car when
His
you fired.
feet were. He was coming after me, sir. What he did after he saw me go for my weapon, he didn't try to say anything. I didn't see him.
Let me get this straight then. This man has a shotgun, right?
Yep, as far as I know, he's hiding behind the door.
Right. With a shotgun.
Yes.
I mean, you said you described
I
it
saw 4 inches of thick barrel.
right, and you know what a shotgun looks like.
Absolutely.
Okay. And this is the man who's been carrying on now for how long saying, I'm going to kill you, you're dead, something, something, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what you're telling this jury is that when you actually turn your attention away from him and go to grab a firearm, that he suddenly changed his mind and said, oh, you know what? You're right. I won't do that. Is that what you're telling the jury?
I don't know what he's thought or said, but apparently.
I guess he changed his mind.
Apparently.
Jordan Davis was never a threat to you, was he, Mr. Dunn?
Absolutely he was. Between his actions and his threats.
Jordan Davis never got out of that car, did he?
Mr. Guy,
Yes, he did.
let him finish his answer before you ask another question.
Yes, he did. And not only did he get out, his head cleared the window frame.
Did his head look like the guy that we saw in the identification picture?
Well, all that happened so fast, I really couldn't tell you what he looked like.
Your interview with the police. That was about 2:45 the next day, right?
I don't know
It was in
what
the
time it
afternoon?
was.
Right? You remember?
Yeah, I don't know what time it was.
Is that fair? Is that about right?
It seems about right.
Okay. And so we are many, many hours from the time of the shooting, right?
Yes.
And you're the stoic one, right?
Yes, I was still in
You're
shock.
remaining calm for Rhonda, right?
Yes.
But the truth is, sir, you lied to the police, didn't
How
you?
so?
Well, they asked you specifically, was the music playing when you pulled up? And you said no. Do you remember that?
I do, and I don't remember the heavy bass being an issue when we first pulled up.
Okay, but that's not what they asked you. They asked you, was the music playing when
Right,
you pulled
and
up?
it wasn't. I mean, if they had music on, it wasn't heavy bass where I would notice it.
Okay, but it was loud enough to be thug music, right?
That's how what Rhonda characterized. I don't recall saying that.
You don't recall saying, I hate that thug music?
No, if I would have said anything, I would have called it rap crap. Thug music isn't a term I would use.
So Ms. Rower got that wrong?
I wasn't gonna say anything about it, but I don't recall saying that, and that's not a term I would use.
Okay, but I mean, she wasn't upset when y'all were at the gate station, right? When you pulled
No,
in.
but realize there's a lot of trauma afterwards, and she could have imagined something.
She could have imagined it. You could have imagined a gun, correct?
Anything's possible, sir. It's just not likely. Like I said, between his threats and actions, they were reinforcing what my eyes were telling me.
And the detectives actually went on about the music, didn't they? And you said no. It wasn't until Rhonda got out of the
Your
car
Honor.
and she had been gone for a little bit.
Again, I'm going to object to improper impeachment. Again, there's no predicate to read from it evidence because there's been no dispute.
Judge, it's a prior inconsistent statement.
Lack of foundation predicate.
Let me see counsel at the sidebar real quick.
Mr. Dunn, your testimony this afternoon or this morning is that when you pulled up, there was music playing in the red SUV.
Yeah, there may have been music playing, but it wasn't that heavy thumping noise that bothered me.
Okay, isn't it true you said the detective, still on the topic of music, no, it wasn't until Rhonda got out of the car and she had been gone for a little bit.
That the thumping started, correct?
Okay, but they were asking you about music.
And that agrees with my letter as well, by the way. I'm sorry, you know, music is music where there's lyrics and instruments. My complaint was the heavy bass that was reverberating the body panels.
Okay, well, let me use your words, because you're saying the music is playing when you pulled up, right?
Right.
Okay, do you remember this question and this answer in your interview? Okay, just kind of walk me through kind of what happened at that point. This is you. Well, I'm embarrassed to say, but Rhonda got out. She's in the store, and there's like an SUV next to us. And then the music starts.
Sure, and in that case, I probably should have said the heavy bass thumping.
But you said music starts.
Correct.
And what did you say to her? You didn't say, I hate that thug music. What did you say?
I didn't say this, but if I had said anything, I would have characterized it as rap crap, not thug music. That's not a term I'm familiar with.
Okay, but rap crap. You don't like that either, do you?
I don't like the thumping noise.
Especially when it's loud, right?
Yeah, it hurts my ears.
All right. You testified this afternoon, or this morning, that you had 3 or 4 rum and cokes, right?
Yeah, they were small. I mean, it would probably equal 1 or 2 normal-sized drinks.
Okay, so
Probably 1
Rhonda-
or 2 ounces of
Rhonda
alcohol.
Rower got that right? The number of cokes you had? Rum and coke?
She did.
Okay. Do you remember telling the police when they asked you if you had had anything to drink at the wedding, you said, I had a toast and a rum and coke?
Right, I said I had 1.
Right. But now today you're saying you had 3 or 4.
Well, in my defense, 1 ounce of alcohol is 1 drink to me. And I guess I was wrong. I probably had 2 ounces of alcohol.
And your testimony today is that Jordan Davis said to you, this shit is going down tonight.
No, this shit's going down now.
This shit's going down now, okay? You didn't tell that to the sheriff's office, did you?
I don't think I did. You know, I had 2 hours of sleep. This whole incident was very new. But after, if you can call it a night's sleep in the jail, I did have an interview with my attorney.
Well, let me ask you.
And all this, you know, instead of being interrogated, I was actually interviewed, and this extra detail came out.
Interrogated? Did they threaten you? Did the police threaten you?
Well, you know, it was combative, so that wasn't an interview, sir. It was an interrogation.
Did they promise you anything? Like to get you to answer a certain way?
Nope.
Did they threaten you physically?
Nope.
Did they threaten you verbally?
They were combative.
Did they tell you you don't have to make a statement, right?
Sure.
And you did.
But they were argumentative. They weren't trying to withdraw information from me. They were.
And did they tell you if at any point you want to stop talking, you can stop talking?
In the beginning, they did.
Well, did they ever take that back? Did they ever tell you you couldn't stop?
No, but they weren't stressing that over and over.
Well, you did sign a rights form saying you understood your rights, right?
Correct.
Did you
I
forget
I had nothing to hide. You know, if I had further recollections after getting more than 2 hours of sleep, I think that's normal.
Isn't it true that Detective Musser said to you, is there anything else you can tell us that you want to tell us about what happened?
I believe he did.
And you said, nope,
Your
that's
Honor,
it.
If I can just object and approach for 1 minute, Your Honor.
Mr. Guy?
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Dunn, the bottom line is, in your interview with the police, you never said that Jordan Davis said this shit's going down tonight, or now.
Correct, I did not. And I think I even mischaracterized to the police the whole "I'm going to kill you," because I was like they said, you know, it was coming through at bits and pieces.
Okay, but you did give the police an account, right?
Yeah, as best I could, under the circumstances, 2 hours of sleep.
And you told them graphic details about what happened, right?
Somewhat.
And you told them that Jordan Davis was the one threatening you, right?
Yes, he was.
You didn't know his name, but you said that was the guy who's threatening you.
It was in the rear passenger seat.
All right. But today you said there were actually 2 guys in the back seat.
There were
Let
2
me
guys
finish.
in the back.
2 guys in the back seat who had menacing looks on their faces, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, you didn't tell the sheriff's office that, did you?
I didn't think it was relevant.
You didn't?
Well, not at the time.
Okay, well, you knew you were being questioned about a murder, right?
Sure.
And so you just thought you'd leave that out?
The guy in the rear passenger was the one doing the threatening. The other guy was just looking mean.
Let's talk about what this what you saw was. As you sit here today, what is it now?
It was a shotgun.
It's a shotgun. Okay, what did you tell the sheriff's office it was?
I told him it was a shotgun.
Didn't you tell them it was either a barrel or a stick?
Yes, I did. And this is after the police telling me there was no weapon recovered at the car or the scene, and me believing the police were competent and able to search the whole area. So by process of elimination, you know, it's like some kind of industrial object, a pipe, something that looked very much like a barrel. But at the time, his actions and his threats, there was no doubt in my mind that that was a weapon, that that was a firearm.
But
The doubt came in when the police started telling me that they didn't recover anything in the car at the scene. But as we've learned, they didn't check the scene.
And but you said at that time it could have been a stick.
Yeah, and again, 2 hours of sleep, I misspoke. I mean, a stick doesn't really do justice to it. Picture anything that looks like a barrel, something with a metal patina right around the same thickness of a shotgun barrel.
And isn't it true that the detective said at some point, is it possible it was your imagination? And you said yes.
No, I did not. I started to say that anything is possible, but not likely. And it certainly wasn't my imagination that he came out of the car.
You don't like that music, do you?
It's not my style, but you know, when I was a kid, my folks didn't like rock and roll.
And they were listening to it loud, right?
The body panels on their vehicle were vibrating. The side windows of my car, they were vibrating. The rear window, the rear mirror in my car was vibrating. My eardrum was vibrating. It wasn't loud. It was obnoxious.
And you didn't like it?
It was painful. I asked for a common courtesy. Hey, could you turn that down, please? If they would have said, F you, we're not doing it, I mean, that's basically what they did. They turned it off, turned it back on. I wasn't going to ask them again. I was done. I asked them for a common courtesy. They gave it. I said thank you. And that was the end of it. Even when they turned it back on, that was the end of it. It was Jordan Davis who kept escalating this to the point where I had no choice but to defend myself. It was life or death.
Jordan Davis was getting on you, right? I mean, he was cussing, right?
You know, I heard snips of what he was saying, but it wasn't until I heard I should fucking kill that motherfucker that I started really paying attention to what he was saying.
Your window's up, right?
Yes, and I hear him screaming this.
Okay, I mean, the window's up and the music's so loud, the bass is so loud that your rear view mirror's rattling.
Well, remember, they shut it off once, and then they turned it on, and it's not quite as loud, but, you know, it's still annoying, but we're not at the eardrum vibrating level now.
But you're telling this jury that with your window closed and that music rattling, you could hear Jordan Davis?
Certainly, because the bass isn't, there's no mid-range, there's no instruments or voices, it's just low bass. And he is so excited and angry, I hear him over that with my window up.
And that didn't upset you at all? You thought, oh, that's okay.
I was concerned, and that's why I put my window down and asked him, are you talking about me? I was ready to try to de-escalate the situation because I could see it was spiraling out of hand. At every time this young man's speaking, it's louder and louder and more violent at each step.
Didn't you tell the police that you couldn't make out everything that was being said?
That's correct. Yeah, the something something cracker and the something something white boy. I mean, I couldn't hear it all, but I could tell he was irate.
And so you rolled down your window.
I did.
And you asked him, are you talking about me?
I said, are you talking about me?
Okay. Did you have a question about that?
I did, because, you know, sometimes maybe you think it's about you and it's not. But I also didn't, you know, I didn't want to assume, but at the same time it was an opener to try to say, hey, you know, I did say thanks, I appreciated it. You know, again, trying to de-escalate.
There was nobody else in the car, was there?
There were two others in the car.
No, in your car.
No.
Okay, so you didn't think they were talking to somebody else in the car?
Well, they weren't talking to me, sir. They were talking about somebody, and that's why I asked, are you talking about me?
Did you think they were talking about Rhonda?
I didn't know who they were talking about. I assumed they were talking about me, but I didn't want to just, you know, start off with any old thing. That's what I thought of as an opener to de-escalate.
Okay, so you're telling this jury that this guy who now is escalating, I think was your word, and screaming that he's going to kill you, right?
Correct.
So you thought the best course of action is to roll down your window and say, excuse me, are you talking about me?
Correct.
That's what you thought the best idea was?
Yes. You know, nothing for nothing, but, you know, they could have been singing. I didn't want to assume that they were talking about killing me if they were singing.
The truth is, sir, when you rolled down your window and said, "Are you talking about me?" you were challenging this 17-year-old boy.
I don't believe so. I put the inflection on me.
And the truth is, he took your challenge, didn't he? And said, "Yeah, I am talking to you."
He didn't say that. He said, yeah, I'm going to fucking kill you.
Well, I guess you got your answer, didn't you? You were being disrespected by a mouthy teenager, weren't you?
No, I was being threatened. Threatening to kill somebody isn't a disrespect. That is just crazy.
The windows in the SUV are tinted, correct?
The front ones where I couldn't tell you about the rear, I never saw them up.
Okay, and I think you told the jury that you couldn't even see the guy sitting next to you, right?
I couldn't see the front passenger, no.
You know who that is now?
Yes,
Tevin Thompson?
yes.
Okay, you knew there was a guy in the back seat, right?
Yeah, there were two in the back seat.
Right. And you knew there was a driver, right?
Yeah, I assumed the driver was in the store, but I did see a young man walk by, you know, when I went to ask if they were talking about me.
Okay, well that's three, right?
Well, that would have been the fourth.
Well, you couldn't see Tevin Thompson, could you?
I could see that somebody was there, and obviously, when I asked to turn the music down, the music was off, and, you know, there's somebody there by the controls.
So now you could see somebody in that.
I saw like a shape. I couldn't see his face or really tell where he was facing, front or back, but you could see like a shape.
All right, well they didn't have any lights on in their car, did they?
I don't believe so.
Okay, and it was nighttime?
Yeah,
Right.
It was dusk, evening.
And you've seen the pictures of the car now, right?
Yes.
The windows are tinted, all of them.
Well, the rear windows, I haven't seen up. I assume they're tinted, but I haven't seen them.
Dark tint, right?
That's what I understand, the darkest legal tint.
All right, and you're telling this jury that through the dark tint at night, you were able to see Jordan Davis bend forward.
Oh, no, you misunderstand. The rear windows were down.
Okay, so you can
Both
see
sides. So I can see light coming through. And all I really saw of him is his shoulders leaning forward because, you know, the door, his door is higher than mine.
So you're saying that Leland Brunson's window was down too?
Yes.
And you could see through the door that he was bending forward?
No, I could see over the door, through the window, that his shoulders leaned forward.
Didn't you write in your letter that he bends forward and picks up something with both hands?
Right, because of the shoulders. If he
So
had done this or that, that would, to me, indicate one hand, but both shoulders.
Okay. So you're just assuming now through the door that he used both hands.
Yeah, I'm extrapolating. Further, adding
Judge,
to
I'm going to
the...
object to this as being non-responsive.
Mr. Dunn, you just need to wait for another question, all right?
Yes, sir.
And this guy who's enraged, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's just
Yelling,
amping up.
screaming,
You know, yelling. Yes,
threatening to kill you.
yes,
Now he's got a shotgun, right?
yep.
And he opens his door, right?
Right, now remember, he unlatched it. It's only open a little bit when he hollers, "You're dead, bitch."
Okay, but you said he got out.
He did after that.
Okay, so
It's
he did
kind of
open
like,
the door.
it's just like I said, it keeps getting worse.
He did open the door.
Yep, he popped it open
Okay.
a little, and then he opened it all the way. Well, you know, most of the way.
And can you show the jury on States 125 where the ding is in your door?
I
where
don't
this
think,
Madman opened the door?
I don't think it hit me.
So the guy who's enraged, who's next to you, opens the door and doesn't hit your car?
Apparently not. But if you look at the rear of a Durango, it's by the wheel well, and their door isn't. It isn't like a sedan where they would hit you. It's a little high.
And tell the jury how close the two cars were.
They were pretty close.
How close?
I couldn't tell you feet-wise, but I know the Durango is parked close to the white line separating our two spots.
Well, you put that fact in your letter too, didn't you?
I did.
Okay, and what you said in your letter was there was a red SUV to the left that was parked too close to the right of its space for me to exit my car.
Correct.
So you couldn't open your door, right?
I could, but it wouldn't have been comfortable.
Okay, but he can open his door in a rage and not hit your car.
Obviously, because that's what happened. So yes.
And because the cars were so close, if he would have gotten out of the car, there would have been a door in between you two, right?
There was.
So he would have had to close the door, step back, close the door, and then come forward, right?
I guess, or fire over the door. I couldn't tell you what his strategy was.
And so it was at that point that you grabbed your gun, right?
When he exited his car and hollered, "This shit's going down now," I had already been afraid for my life, but now the fear was imminent, and I was done. I mean, this is serious, and I took him at his word. I mean, he's been telling me he's going to kill me. He's told me I'm dead, and now he's telling me it's going to happen now. I'm not going to forfeit my life to somebody.
And he's outside the car.
Yes.
Okay, and it's at that point that you reach over for the glove box, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you have to reach for the glove box, right?
Yes.
You have to open the glove box.
Yes.
You have to grab your gun.
Yes.
You have to pull the gun out.
Yes.
You have to take the holster off.
Yes.
You have to pull the slide back, right?
Right, I have to cock it.
Then you have to turn, right?
Yes.
And point the gun, right?
Yes.
You've had to put your middle finger through the trigger guard, right? Because your
Right, I demonstrated all
this.
this. I did it in about 2 seconds.
Okay, and in all that time, the guy who was outside the car threatened to kill you, he didn't shoot you?
Well, he did not, thankfully.
I mean, we didn't miss that, right? I mean, he didn't shoot you, right? He didn't shoot at you.
You know, if you listen to the video, there is some kind of pop. I don't know if that was him or somebody else, but...
Hold on. Are you telling this jury that Jordan Davis discharged a firearm at you?
I have no knowledge of what he did or didn't do.
Well, you know what a shotgun sounds like, right?
Sure, sure.
It's not quiet, is it?
No, it's a boom. It's a distinctive boom.
Okay, so we would have heard a shotgun go off.
You would have, and the pop I'm talking to, it sounds a little weak. I'm not sure what the heck that is.
But it's not a shotgun going on.
No.
So you were not shot at.
Well, I don't know. I'm just telling you what I heard on the audio. You guys will hear it.
So the guy that got out, wanting to kill you, telling he was going to kill you, watched you do all those things and didn't shoot you.
Your Honor, asked an answer to objection.
Sustained.
Did you say on direct that you thought he might just be out there to beat you? Didn't you say beat me?
I wasn't really sure what his intentions were. You know, he's saying kill. He didn't say I'm going to beat you up. But, you know, he's enraged. I have no idea what his intentions are. And quite frankly, I don't want to find out.
And how tall are you?
I'm 6'4".
And how much did you weigh?
At the time, 250 plus,
Okay,
280.
Jordan Davis was measured at 5'11", 145 with all his clothes on. Does that sound about right?
I couldn't tell you.
So you were worried that this guy who's 100 pounds less than you?
I tell you, anybody with a gun is deadly.
But you were worried he was going to beat you up, right?
Well, you know, if he has, I'm sitting in a car and he comes at me with a metal object, I mean, but at the time, his threats and actions left no doubt in my mind that that was a firearm. It looked like a firearm. He was treating it like a firearm. He wasn't saying, I'm going to beat you up. He was saying, I'm going to kill you.
So
you're dead.
You said to him, "You're not going to kill me, you son of a bitch."
That's right.
Right? And you're telling this jury you didn't raise your voice when you did that?
I said that more of to myself. I mean, I'm inside the car getting my pistol, so I'm not saying it to him. I'm saying this is a think that I'm saying out loud.
Okay, did you say it out loud?
Yes, I did.
And you don't think this guy heard you?
I hope he did.
You hope he did?
Sure, that's part of any self-defense is you want to yell and kind of like stun your attacker.
Right, and when you yelled, "You're not going to kill me, you son of a bitch," he still didn't fire?
Thankfully, no.
In your letter, you say, I mean, the way you described it, it happened all very fast, right? You said just a couple of seconds? Right?
From the time where he first popped his door and said, "You're dead, bitch,"
Right.
and then where he opened the door and started getting out and said, "This shit's going down now." I mean, it maybe a couple heartbeats in between saying I'm dead and then getting out.
And in your letter, didn't you say that you were paralyzed with fear?
I was when I asked him, "Are you talking about me?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm going to effing kill you." Had he decided to shoot me through the car, that would have been the time to do it. And I was paralyzed, and I wouldn't have been able to react.
But somehow the paralysis just left you.
Well, when he opened this door and came after me and announced that this shit was going down now, yes, it did.
And that's what you put in your letter, that something happened inside of me, my paralysis left me.
That's accurate. Again, this letter wasn't for you all. This was for my family and friends. I had no idea that you would have access to my mail, but I'm happy that you read this so you can understand what I went through. And the jury will have this. I'm happy that you do.
Right?
It's as accurate as I can get. This was written in June, and it pretty much covers the nightmare that I have.
And you shot from inside your car, right?
Yes, I did.
But this guy didn't, right? He had to get out of the car to shoot.
He had a long gun, so I guess maybe that's why I couldn't tell you about his tactics. I can just tell you what I did.
And you, when you fired, you didn't fire a warning shot, right?
Of course not.
I mean, you didn't fire up in the air.
Of course not.
You didn't fire down at the ground.
Why would I? This guy has made his intentions clear.
So you put it right on the door.
I have every right of self-defense, and I took it.
The question was, you aimed right at the door
Yes, sir. I pointed at the direction of my attacker.
and pulled the trigger, right?
Yes, sir.
So you hit your target?
You know, I was pointing towards my attacker. I hit the door, and unfortunately, he was right there behind the door. My intention was to stop the attack, not necessarily end a life. It just worked out that way.
With two hands, right? Two hands on the gun?
Yes, sir.
Like, remember Sean Atkins, the inmate who testified?
Mm-hmm.
When he did that demonstration like this, that was accurate, right?
That was accurate when the SUV was driving away, and I opened my door and I took a little hop out and did that.
How many hands did you use the first time then?
2. I was across my body.
And the car started backing out, didn't it?
It did, and as I mentioned earlier, I had tunnel vision. The red wall of the doors going by didn't register right away, and that's why you have 3 additional rounds in the front passenger. It didn't register what was going on immediately.
Okay, but when you say you had tunnel vision, you're not saying you didn't realize you were continuing to pull the trigger.
I really didn't. I mean, this whole how many and this and that, I thought I shot 3. Rhonda told me she heard 4, and then we see there were 6. I mean, it's just the perceptions are off.
Well, actually, there were 7, right? You missed one.
Okay.
So are you telling this jury you blacked out during that period?
I didn't black out, but you know, the adrenaline and everything that's happening kind of affects your perception.
And
The fear.
and then they were out of your view, right?
Well, they went behind me.
Right. So you got out of your car.
I opened my door.
Are you saying you didn't get out of your car?
I think I maybe took a kneel or a step away.
Okay. You want to look at page 2 of your letter for me? When you describe getting out of your car, and I can show you where it is. It's right there in the middle. You want me to point it to you?
I'm finding it.
The sentence
It
begins.
says I ran a few feet behind my car. I think I ran a few feet from my car.
Okay, but you wrote
Sure, but
in your statement, the SUV pulled forward and I got out of my car and ran a few feet behind my car.
right, and I'm telling you, I probably should have written from my car.
Okay, so what was it? Because just a minute ago you said you did a kneel down.
Yeah, like
Your
a
letter
few
you wrote-
feet from my car.
I'm sorry?
I kneeled down, like got out of my driver's seat, took a step or two, and then kneeled down.
Okay, and where was the red SUV then? It wasn't behind your car then.
No, it was driving forward, but this is where they had a line from me to the front door. So not only was I saving my life, I was saving Rhonda's from blind fire.
Right, you knew Rhonda was standing outside behind you?
I was afraid that that's where she would be.
You were wrong though. She wasn't, was she?
Well, you know what? About 2 seconds later, she was. So my fear was well-founded.
Well, she didn't come out until you stopped firing, right?
I couldn't tell you exactly when she came out, but the time it took me to walk those 2 steps and get in the car, she was coming out.
So tell me again, or tell us again why you fired. I mean, they're driving away now, right?
Right, at that point, they're driving away.
Right.
Why I fired, there's at least 1 firearm and 4 shooters in a car that just threatened to kill me.
4 shooters threatened to kill you? Is that what you just said?
I said there's at least 1 firearm and at least 4 shooters in a car that just threatened to kill me.
Okay, how many of the other shooters had guns?
I don't know, but there's at least 1 gun, and any one of them could have used it.
Oh, okay. So they were going to pass it around?
I have no idea, sir. I'm just telling you what I was thinking.
Okay, but the fact is, nobody did fire back, did they?
No?
And nobody stuck a gun out the window at you, did they?
Yes, they did.
No. When they're pulling away.
No, they didn't.
And you said to the police, they asked you about those shots, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah, and your words to the police was, I can't justify that last volley.
Other than to say, and then I got cut off.
Did you not tell the police, I can't justify that last volley?
Other than to say, and then I got cut off. So yes, I did say what you said, but I also continued the sentence with other than to justify.
And I guess you're telling this jury that you thought that they might shoot back at you, right?
That was my fear, my
Okay.
concern.
So your thought was, I'll get out of my car and get into the open.
Well, it was to try to get out of the line of fire.
Okay, but wouldn't that put you in the line of fire if you're
Not
outside your
necessarily,
car?
because if you get behind them, they can't shoot behind them as easily as they can beside them. And if you look at the rear bullet holes, they were from behind it
Well, definitely they were.
and not
And
beside
I
it.
think you said at one point you were shooting to keep their heads down.
Right, that's the blind fire. Keep their heads down so they would not shoot back.
Okay, what's blind fire?
That's where they just shoot over blindly without aiming.
Okay, so you were worried that these guys were just going to kind of do one of these, maybe?
Yes.
So you said you're going to shoot to keep their heads down, right?
Well, I was shooting low, but my gun climbed.
Well, I mean, if you were shooting to keep their heads down, why'd you put 2 in the rear tail light?
Well, you know, if you shoot, even missing and hitting the ground, it's noise, and maybe they would duck. And, you know, you're asking me why I didn't shoot to kill. I was shooting to keep their heads down, not to kill.
Into the taillight.
Correct.
And then you put your gun back in the glove box, right?
I did.
Even though these, I think you called them gangsters, even though these gangsters were still out there, right?
Right, and my gun was ready to fire at that time. It was fully loaded. Well, had 5 rounds, but there was 1 in the barrel.
But, I mean, you saw them pull off and go, you thought they were on Southside Boulevard, right?
I did.
And so they weren't a threat to you anymore, right?
Correct.
So you were safe, right?
Well, I didn't know if they were coming back or if there were other, if they had friends in the parking lot. I was petrified.
Did you see any other friends in the parking lot?
No, but I didn't look either.
Okay, I mean, Steve Smith, he was in the parking lot, right?
Yeah, and I didn't see him.
Did you think he was one of their friends?
No, I didn't even see him.
Did you think Sean Atkins was one of their friends?
I didn't see these people. I had, you know, the tunnel vision going.
So you were imagining that there might be another car?
Well, you know, you hear enough news stories and you read about these things, they go through your mind.
You thought everybody in the car was a thug or a gangster, right?
After the way they behaved, yes, I did. Their thoughts.
The way they behaved?
Well, the one man in particular, but his neighbor seemed to have been in agreement right there with him.
Okay, but the guy in the front seat actually turned the music down, right?
You're right. He was the reasonable one.
Right, and the driver, he didn't threaten you in any way, did he?
You're right. He did not.
So, the threat is gone, and you decided the best course of action was to leave, right?
Yes, sir.
Even though there were lots of people around, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there was lighting around, right?
Yes, sir.
And the front door to the store couldn't have been more than, what, 12 feet away from your car?
Correct.
And so you thought that the best thing to do is to flee.
Or leave. To leave the area.
And you did have your cell phone with you.
Pardon?
You did have your cell phone with you.
Yeah, my cell phone was set on Google Maps, directions to the hotel, but yes, I did.
Okay, but it doesn't take long to get that off, does it? Don't you just push the button?
No.
And you are familiar with 911, are you not?
Yes, I am.
3 digits, right?
Yes, sir.
You didn't call the police, did you?
No, never did. I
You
was
didn't call the
panicked.
police at the store, right?
I didn't call the police at all until the following morning.
That didn't go through your head, like maybe I just shot at somebody because they
You-
pointed a gun at me, I should call the police?
You know, you're right, it sounds crazy, and I couldn't tell you what I was thinking when all this happened. I can just tell you that I didn't do it. And if you had told me that if this happened to you, you wouldn't call the police, I wouldn't believe you. But that's what happened.
But, I mean, you were upset when you left the store, right?
I was in a panic.
Right. And then you got back to the hotel.
Yes,
Right.
that's where we went, like our sanctuary.
And you didn't call the police at the hotel, did you?
Nope, same logic or lack of reasoning. It's just what we did.
Mr. Dunn, the reason you left the gas station is because you knew you had shot into a car of 4 unarmed teenagers.
That's incorrect.
So you go back to the hotel and you go inside.
Yes,
You take your phone with you?
I believe I did.
Did you call the police from the safety of your hotel room?
No, as I said, I didn't call the police until the following morning for reasons I couldn't explain why.
And I think you said earlier, and I asked you to pause, that you spent the time looking down, waiting for the red SUV to come back. Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
it was like a waking nightmare.
Hold on. Did you sit in that hotel and look down
At
and
the
wait
club
for
room, yeah.
and wait for the red SUV? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking down at traffic, and just my waking nightmare is that they would come by.
Yeah. I mean, the SUV had pulled off, right?
Yeah, I didn't know where they went. I didn't see it again.
You didn't follow the SUV.
No,
They didn't follow you.
I had no knowledge. I mean, it was.
So you just
I
thought,
certainly hoped that they hadn't.
so you just thought that somehow they were going to find out where you parked at your hotel.
I know it's not rational. I admit that. That's why I said it was my waking nightmare.
And because you thought this car full of gangsters was going to come back, you decided to park in the front of the hotel, right?
I don't recall where I parked.
But did Miss Rower's testimony refresh your recollection? She said y'all parked in the front.
If that's where she said, we may have parked there, but I didn't consciously park there.
And you put, you left your gun in the glove box, right?
Yeah, that was Rhonda's idea, because I was going to take it, and she is like, just kind of weirded out about everything, so I took the time to safe it and put it in the glove box.
Right. Because you knew nobody was behind you.
Well, I didn't know anything, and like I said, the fear while we were up in the club room, I agree it was irrational, but this is what we were experiencing.
And when you were at the hotel room, you didn't call 911.
I didn't call the police until the following morning.
You called the pizza man, right?
Yeah, I think I mentioned that. I wanted to get something for Rhonda to eat to calm her upset stomach.
I'm going to come back to that. You told the police that one of the reasons you left the station was you were in a strange town.
Right.
In a strange area.
Right.
Even though you lived off that very same road for 2 years.
Yeah, like 15 years ago, none of it was familiar.
After a 2-year period, it wasn't familiar to you?
Not really. I went from that apartment to the NAS, and I knew from the apartment to the highway.
So, when you lived here for 2 years, you didn't go anywhere else?
Not really. I had a motorcycle, and it was inconvenient to drive it around.
You didn't ever take your motorcycle for a ride?
No, I went from the apartment to work.
Isn't that why people have motorcycles, to go for rides?
It is, but that was my only form of transportation at the time.
Well, I guess you didn't have much of a social life then, because you were just going, I guess, from your brother-in-law's house or your brother's house to work and straight back?
Yep.
Nowhere else?
And then on the weekends home.
Yeah, you didn't go anywhere else out in Jacksonville.
Not this way. We were down by NAS.
Okay, Miss Rower said you'd been to that station before. Did she get that right?
I very well could have for fuel.
The reason you didn't call the police is because you knew you had committed a crime.
No, sir.
Did you know that that somebody had written down your tag number?
No.
Is that why you parked in the front of the hotel? Because you didn't think anybody knew who did it?
The thought had nothing like that came into play.
So you're staring down at the SUV or looking for the SUV without your gun, right?
Correct.
And you take Charlie. You take Charlie outside.
Backwards. We did Charlie first.
Right. But you took him outside, right?
Yes.
Even though the gangsters might be around?
My waking nightmare, yes.
Without your gun?
Correct. I fully say that it was a irrational fear, but it was fear.
And you weren't expecting Charlie to protect you, right?
Of course not.
You poured yourself a drink?
Yeah, to calm my nerves, I poured one for Rhonda too.
Stiff drink?
Yes,
Alcoholic drink?
with rum and coke.
Did that help you be stoic, I guess?
No, it didn't help calm me down even a little bit. We were
And
pretty
then
shook up.
you turned on a movie?
I don't recall. I know we were watching TV out in the common room, whatever was on.
Right. So you weren't afraid that the gangsters were going to come up into the common area?
You needed a key card to get in the elevator, so no.
So you were in the common area
For a while, yeah.
watching TV?
Yeah, whatever was on.
You still haven't called the police, right?
Your Honor, asked and answered.
Sustain.
And then at 1 o'clock, your phone. Thank you, Judge. You, I think where we left off, it was somewhere in the middle of the night, and you were still very upset about what happened, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but you didn't call the police to alleviate your concerns about the people who might be driving around, right?
We didn't contact law enforcement until the next morning.
Can I have that screen up? I believe you said that the window on the driver's side in the back was open.
I thought it was. I saw a light come through.
Does that refresh your recollection, states 21?
Well, I see the windows up now. At the time, I'm thinking that it was down, but
Okay,
it was just based on light coming through.
but you're not saying it was down, right?
I wasn't on that side of the car, so I couldn't say for sure.
All right, but you did say that earlier today. You said...
I realized what I said, but it was based on ambient light coming through.
And you said that you don't use the phrase thug music, do you?
It doesn't seem to be a familiar term. If I was going to refer to it, I'd call it rap crap.
At 1 o'clock, you were flipping on your phone there, and you saw that someone had been killed?
Yes, I was actively seeking news.
Right. And when you got the news that someone you had shot was dead, you didn't call the police?
No, I went to the bathroom and threw up.
Objection asked and answered, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You did not call the police?
I went to the
Now it's
bathroom
asked
and
and
threw up.
answered, Mr. Guy.
And you've been emotional today, right?
Yeah, for certain topics.
Did you cry when the news came on that a young boy had been killed?
I don't recall. I know I was very upset.
You took a shower?
That was at 7 in the morning.
And then you left town?
We went back home to Sanctuary to contact law enforcement. Safe harbor, I should say.
Okay, Duval wasn't this a safe harbor?
Again, if you asked me how I would react to a situation like this, I never would have guessed
Okay, that's not
how we
right.
did or what we did. So when you're questioning me whether I contacted Duval, it makes sense that I should have. We didn't. I couldn't tell you why.
Are the police different in Satellite Beach than they are in Duval County?
Well, I had a neighbor in federal law enforcement that was personally known to me. So in that respect, yes.
Okay, but he's not a police officer, right?
It's federal law enforcement.
Okay. He doesn't work in Jacksonville, does he?
No,
So he wouldn't have been handling your shooting, right?
correct. I really wasn't worried about the law, sir. Self-defense, you can't change it into murder. So whether I waited 10 hours or 10 days, it didn't matter. I had other concerns at the time, and that was surrounding my fiance.
It didn't matter to...
It didn't matter in the present mind that I was in.
It mattered to you? Or who did it matter to?
It didn't matter to me in the state of mind I was in.
You had killed a 17-year-old boy and that didn't matter to you?
In self-defense, and whether I called the police that night or the next morning didn't seem, it wasn't going to change it from self-defense to anything else.
You were concerned about Charlie? Getting
I was
Charlie back?
concerned about Rhonda.
Didn't you tell the sheriff's office that you wanted to get Rhonda and the dog back before the shitstorm came down?
Sure.
You couldn't have called one of your family members to take your dog?
I'm sure we could have done a lot of things, but again,
All
we
those-
didn't. and it kind of describes the state of mind we were in.
Okay, well, I'm not asking about we. I'm asking about you.
Well, it was both of us.
Okay, but I'm asking about your decisions, not anybody else's.
Okay.
So any of those people in that family picture we saw there this week, you couldn't call those people to take care of the
I
dog?
could have called any number of them, but I did not.
All right. And Rhonda Rauer's an adult, right?
Yes, she is.
She could take care of herself, right?
Sure.
You said earlier that you never, or that you did tell Rhonda Rauer that there was a gun, that they had a gun. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember writing Rhonda Rauer a letter?
I wrote
About the
Rhonda
events?
several letters.
Okay, do you remember one on Wednesday, December 5th of 2012?
I do not.
Would it refresh your memory to see it?
Sure.
Judge, if I could hand the witness what's been marked for identification as 8U.
Yes, sir.
Judge, if they have a copy,
Sorry?
I don't know what they're handing, if they have a copy.
Oh, for you? Okay.
Well, I don't have an additional copy. I'm just going to look at that one.
That was the one you showed.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay.
Sir, would you read that first paragraph to yourself and see if that refreshes your recollection about whether or not you told Rhonda Rauer there was a gun?
I wrote here that I cannot recall if I ever conveyed the details of my decision making to you.
Is that your letter?
Yes.
Okay, it hadn't been altered, has it?
I wouldn't know. I don't have a original.
Okay, you wrote it, right?
It appears to me.
Okay. Fair and accurate copy?
Sure.
Judge, can I move this in? It states, I think we're 202.
I think it is 202. Mr. Stroller?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, I'll be received as State's Exhibit 202.
Thank you. Hand that back to you. You now got 202 in front of you. Ask you to turn your attention to the front page. Did you not write, in passing, he mentioned in passing that I had made no mention of a gun to you.
Right, so what's your point? Is that what it says?
Is that not what it says?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you didn't tell Rhonda Rauer about a gun.
That's not what this says. This says somebody else told me that she said she didn't remember me mentioning the gun. That's a lot different from me not mentioning a gun to her.
Okay, so you're going to stick with the fact that you didn't, that you told her about a gun.
Pardon?
You're going to stick with your account that you told her about a gun multiple times.
Yes.
Okay. And to be sure, you were not injured that night, right?
Correct.
Your car was not damaged?
Not to my knowledge.
You pulled the trigger 10 times, right?
Yes, sir.
Each time you pull the trigger, I mean, it's a 6 1/4 pound trigger pull, right?
That's what I heard testified.
Does that
Yes.
sound right?
I don't know what it would be.
Well, you've had that gun at that point for 22 years.
Sure, but I had never had the trigger pull measured.
All right, but it's not a hair trigger, right?
Correct.
To expel one bullet, you've got to pull the trigger one time.
That should give you an idea how much of a panic I was in that I was able to pull it 10 times without knowing how many times I pulled it.
Are you saying you did it by reflex then?
No, I did it in sheer panic and fear for my life.
While you were aiming directly into the door of a car that was moving?
I was aiming it into a door that was stationary, and the car moved in front of me, and I didn't even realize it was moving.
Well, how about when the car drove away and you took that stance and hit it 3 times?
Right, again, that wasn't just fear for my life, that was fear for my life and
But that,
Rhonda's
but that
at
was a
that point.
panic then? I mean, when you were aiming, that was just a lucky shot that you hit it 3 times?
I pointed, I didn't aim, I didn't use the sight, it was, yes, it was panic.
Well, you'd have to admit then that you're pretty lucky then, right? I mean, because gosh, you're not even aiming at a moving car and you hit it 3 times.
I wouldn't call it luck.
What would you call
It wasn't that far away. I don't know what to tell you, but you know, like how a pistol has sights on it, I wasn't using sights.
it? Each time you pull the trigger, it's a conscious decision to fire, right?
In the situation I was in, I consciously pulled the trigger once. Everything after that was just panic.
So you weren't conscious when you were pulling the trigger the other times?
Well, I wasn't like at a target range where you would pull the trigger once every second and you're paying attention to where you're aiming and all that. That wasn't the case here. This was a panic moment where, you know, as I testified, I had a young man threatening to kill me multiple times, getting out of the car saying it was going down now, and getting out with a weapon. So I was in sheer terror.
So when you got out of the car
I was still in sheer terror.
and repositioned yourself and took aim at the car again, that wasn't a conscious decision to fire?
Yes, it was. And when I pointed at the car, yes.
Each of those last 3 times?
Right, and as I recall, it was like to shoot once, but obviously I did shoot 3 times. So you can imagine the but what, you know, however,
Mr. Dunn, you've said several times throughout the course of the day that you didn't call the police until the next morning. Are you talking about the morning of the 24th?
yes, sir.
Who was it that you called? Can you tell me the name of the officer?
I don't remember his name, but he was here yesterday. And I didn't call him personally. He was called on my behalf.
Okay, and is it your testimony that you called Ken Lescalet?
Yes.
Wasn't that the law enforcement officer you were talking about?
Well, at 8:30 in the morning, I called him, and then I went and spoke with him and asked him to contact law enforcement on my behalf.
Your phone number at the time was 772-201-1362.
Correct. And it's the 202 phone number that I called at 8:30.
Right. 202-365-8150.
Yeah, it's a Washington, D.C. number.
Okay, would it refresh your recollection to explain who called who, whether or not you called him
Your
or
Honor,
who called you?
Judge, if I can object, improper predicate, can we approach?
All right, the objection's overruled. Mr. Guy?
Mr. Lescalet is with the Department of Agriculture.
Yes,
That's what you meant by federal law enforcement.
he is. He's got a shield and everything. He's 001.
All right. Can I refresh your recollection with your phone records as to whether who called who?
You may.
Judge, if I can approach the witness.
Yes, sir.
I want you to look at the call. First of all, does those appear to be your phone records?
Yes, that's my phone number.
Okay. You see the call highlighted at 8:30?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the last column on the right where it says calling party?
Right?
Okay, that's Mr. Lescalet's number, right?
Right? That's where he called me, I guess.
Right, so you didn't call him.
Well, what's the 904 number?
I just asked you about the number on the right, the calling party. Does that refresh your memory as to who called who?
Oh, calling party, gotcha. Yes, sir.
So it was Mr. Lescalet who called you at 8:30 on the morning of the 24th.
Apparently so.
And you did not talk about the fact that you didn't mention to him that you had a problem in Jacksonville that you needed to talk to him about.
I spoke to him at 8:30 in the morning. My apologies. I thought I called him, but I spoke to him to inquire whether or not he was going to be at home because I had an important matter to speak with him. And I did not get into detail about what it was about or where it happened.
Isn't it true that he called you to see if you and Rhonda Rower could go out that night?
I think it was something in the afternoon.
And you told him that the answer was no, Rhonda Rower wasn't feeling well.
I don't recall that aspect of the conversation.
You never said anything to Mr. Lescalet about wanting to talk to him about something.
Yes, I did. I asked if he was going to be home, and I had something important to talk to him about.
Judge, that's all I have. Thank you.
Judge, can I just have one moment, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Very briefly, Mr. Dunn, are you a custodian of records for that call log?
No, I'm not.
Did it appear there were other phone numbers that Mr. Guy was showing you that isn't your number?
Yes.
Okay. Is it possible the calling party is the party that you actually called?
Good. I object to that as call for speculation.
Sustain.
Again, do you know how to read that call log?
No.
Okay. Do you work for the phone company?
No.
Do you even have a 904 number?
No.
Is there a 904 number on that where Mr. Guy refreshed your recollection?
Yes, there was.
Do you even know where that number came from?
No.
Can you look at the top of the page and tell me what it says over that 904?
I don't have it anymore.
Mr. Guy. Judge, if I can approach Mr. Dunn.
Yes, sir.
Can you look at that 904 and tell me what it says at the top of that page?
Dial digit?
Did you dial a 904 number?
Not at 8:30 in the morning.
Right. Did you have a 904 cell phone?
No, not at the time.
Do you have any knowledge of why this record was created with the words on it that says call anything? Do you have any knowledge of how this was created or why?
No.
Do you know who created it?
No.
Judge, again, if I could just have a brief moment, I apologize.
Sure. Mr. Guy, I think your mic is still on.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Now, Mr. Dunn, when Mr. Guy talks about that common area, and he kept saying common area in your hotel, do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Could you explain to the jury where that common area is in the hotel?
It's on the top floor right as you exit the elevators. It's like the entrance to the hallway has a couch and a seating area
Where was your room located?
right down the hall.
And is that on a secure floor where you can't get to without having a pass key to get in?
Yes, it was.
Do you recall Mr. Guy saying that Rhonda's a grown woman and can take care of herself?
I remember.
Was she in a condition that night to take care of herself?
Not at all.
Was she in a condition the next day to take care of herself?
Not at all.
Was she in a condition worse off than we saw her testify the other day?
Very much so.
Now, Mr. Guy also said, again, that you were trying to be stoic for Rhonda. Do you recall those questions?
I do.
Okay. Were you as calm as you are today?
No.
Were you calm as are you sitting at the table next to me?
No.
Were you as calm as when you were sitting at your son's wedding table?
No.
Were you as calm? Let me rephrase that. What was your mental state that day? The next morning?
I was, it was like an out-of-body experience, trying to, process what happened. We were upset when it was just a shooting, and now that we found out there was a fatality, we were just crazy with grief.
Let me ask you this. When you testified earlier too, when you found out, you went in the bathroom and threw up, is that correct?
Yes,
Did you have any type of stomach issues and diarrhea, anything like that?
yes, I did.
And was that through the evening all the way through 5 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, it was.
Is that part of the reasons why when you did get up, you needed to shower?
Yes, it was.
Mr. Guy also talked about this 3-page letter that you wrote.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Could you please tell the jury why you wrote that letter?
I wanted to reassure Rhonda. I mean, if she was questioning things, I wanted to set her mind at ease.
Okay. And you also remember writing the letter that was dictated where your brother typed it out, and Mr. Guy questioned you on that.
Yes, I do.
Okay. What was the purpose of sending that letter out to your family?
That was so they would know the truth and get beyond all the media nonsense that they were putting out.
And do you know if that letter was then spread out to your family and friends so they knew what happened?
Yes, it was. In fact, it was published on justicefordunn.com.
Now, Mr. Guy kept talking about this hour and a half, 2 hours with law enforcement that day with the Jacksonville homicide detectives. You ever been questioned by police for murder?
Never.
You ever been accused of murder?
Never.
Sustained.
Let me ask you this. Are you trained in any type of interrogation or debate?
No.
Do you recall Detective Musser, as Mr. Guy read from your statement about the video? Do you recall Mr. Guy asking you statements about the video?
Yes.
Do you remember him going back and forth about what detective said to you and what you said?
Yes, I do.
Did Detective Musser tell you that people in Jacksonville will get killed for asking to lower the radio?
Actually, he said people in Jacksonville will kill you if you ask them to turn the radio down.
And Detective Oliver tell you, hey, if we found a shotgun, that would be different?
Yes, he did.
Did he tell you if we found a BB gun, that would be different?
Yes, he did.
Did he tell you if we found any gun, that would be different?
Yes, he did.
Did he even tell you if we found a water gun that was painted black, that would be different?
Yes, he did.
Were you under the assumption that they actually searched the plaza for a gun?
I was.
Were you under the assumption that they actually searched the bushes for a gun?
I was.
Were you actually under the assumption that they checked dumpsters that night for a gun?
I was.
Did they ever convey to you in your interrogation that nothing was ever checked in the area when they told you, we never found a gun?
They did not.
And that's when they start asking you about, is it possible it was something else?
Correct.
Sustained.
Do you recall them making a comment about possibilities of other weapons?
Yes, they said it was impossible.
And when did they make that comment about, is it possible it was something else?
When I told them I saw a weapon.
Now, Mr. Guy also talked about it was 4 teenage boys and the weight and size of Jordan Davis. Did you find out the other day he's almost 6 feet tall?
I did.
Was he fully dressed?
He was.
Did he speak to you like a child?
He did not.
Did he act like a child?
He did not.
Did he threaten your life like a child?
No, he did not. He threatened my life like a man.
And how many men were in that car when your life was threatened?
4.
How many were with you?
Nobody, just me.
Do you have any training in boxing?
I do not.
Do you have any training in MMA fighting or self-defense?
No, I do not.
Are you a bodybuilder?
No.
Do you even weightlift?
No.
So even with your size, it would have been 4 on 1.
That's correct.
Now, Mr. Guy also talked about, did you fire a warning shot? Do you recall that?
I do.
When you fired the gun, did you believe a warning shot was going to make him go away?
I did not.
And Mr. Guy said he didn't pull the trigger and you didn't get shot. Do you recall those questions?
I do.
Were you going to wait to see if he was going to pull the trigger?
No, I was convinced he was going to. I wasn't going to wait for him to do it.
And with your experience, a shotgun has a much broader net of pellets than a single bullet.
Yes, shotgun is devastating.
And did you hear their forensic expert, Ms. Pagan, testify that the minimum amount of pellets is 9 in a shotgun shell?
That's correct.
So 1 shotgun shell to 1 bullet would be 9 against 1.
I agree with that.
Now, Mr. Dunn, you have a concealed weapons permit.
Yes, I do.
How long have you had a concealed permit, approximately?
5 years?
Judge, I'm going to object to this, just be honest, go.
Well, that one's asked and answered. Go ahead, Mr. Stroller.
Even with your concealed weapons permit, you could have had that gun next to your leg.
Judge, same objection. Be honest, go.
Sustained.
How many steps away was that secured firearm?
I believe it was 3 steps.
And is that based on what you were trained in?
That and, just being safe.
And do you have the permit to allow you to keep it 1 step away?
I do.
Are you aware if firing a warning shot is illegal in Florida?
I am.
Objection as to relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Your Honor, if I may just briefly.
Sure.
We don't have to do a speaking objection. I would just ask that it was opened the door by cross. Yes, Your Honor.
Let's come around the side.
Yes, Your Honor.
I think you can go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Dunn, do you remember the questions Mr. Guy asked you about why you didn't call 911? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Do you recall those questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You started saying, looking back on it, it's irrational, correct?
I did.
Were you in a rational state of mind that evening?
No.
Were you in a rational state of mind when you found out Mr. Davis was dead?
No, I was not.
Were you in a rational state of mind talking to law enforcement the next day?
No, not really.
Were you in a rational state of mind when the police charged you with murder?
No, I was not.
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Dunn, you can resume your seat. He can resume his seat.
I'm sorry?
He can resume his seat. Do you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, we would rest.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Dunn. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the defense has now rested their case, so I need to take a moment or two and talk to the lawyers outside of your presence. So if you give me 15 minutes, I hope